Attend us, said Denon. In the midst of a solemn silence, she rose and, extending her arms, exclaimed with a strange and penetrating tone, Prions! Down on his knees went the Emperor of all the Russians, followed by everybody present. Kings, aides-de-camp, and valets included. And this, said Sigur, starting up, was the grandeur son of my great Catherine. You may well say your great Catherine, said Didon. What must be the Prince de Ligne have thought on this occasion? He was present. Madame de Crugina must have had great talent, said Madame de Crugin. Pas le bon du monde, said Denon. She had art, the genius of mediocrity. Yes, ventured I. She had religion for her aid, but she fought with the arms of Saint Therese, who legislated for popes and made princes do her bidding. Once you get into the spiritual, you may have nothing to go by but faith. And Madame de Crudena had the greatest faith in young Stilling, as the Emperor Alexander had in her. Here, Humboldt has announced. I never hear this name without rising with involuntary deference. His presence recalls all that is most sublime in the capability of human nature. His gigantic labors contrasted with this pleasant familiarity of his conversations indicate the universality of the highest order of the mind. He is like the elephants who can, with equal ease, tear down an oak or pick up a pin. With me, he always picks up the pin, and we fell into persiflage as usual. His frequent visits to my salon and his great kindness to us have not diminished the awe and reverence with whom I first met him. He is reckoned very sarcastic and given to mystification. Denon put me on guard against this habit, on which I answered, Jalousie de Mirta, and so I took so soon after my leave, somewhat wearied, but highly delighted by the contrast of the two societies, les hommes de la veille et les hommes de la vie. I am glad, however, I was born soon enough to live amongst the former. As we have given a specimen of one kind of light writing, the reader may like to see another. It differs from the prattle of her ladyship, but it is equally amusing in its ways. It is from one of the pitiless judges of the beautiful Albion. Everybody remembers the brilliant opening of Judge Jeffrey's charge in the Edinburgh Review. In the famous case of the incursion, this will never do, and how singly his lordship's verdict has been reversed. Here is a similar case from some unknown judge, sitting in the courts of the Quarterly. It is to that this Humboldt playfully refers in his notes. Though he was mistaken in the number which contained this article, it appeared in the Quarterly for the January 1816 and was called forth by a translation of the first volume of his voyage to the equicental regions. We have been rather tardy, his honor commences, in directing our attention to the labors of the celebrated traveler, and we hardly know what excuse to offer such apparent neglect towards so highly gifted a person. It is some consolation, however, to be able to state that our readers will lose but little from the delay, for if we may be permitted to form a judgment from the 2 volumes now before us, and from 2 others under the title of Researches, which we shall notice hereafter, the most material parts of all his former publications have been, or will be, worked up anew, and in a less bulky form, in which some of them originally appeared. It is not the fault of M. de Humboldt, though it may be his misfortune that he has fallen into the hands of indicious friends who speak of his pretentiousness in a tone of exaggerated panegyric that must pain a modest man and shame a wise one. To term M. de Humboldt, the first of the travelers, is little. He is represented as one in whom may be found the rare union of all that Plato, Thales, and Pythagoras thought among the ancients, all that Montaigne, Buffon, D'Alembert have written among the moderns, astronomer, physiologist, antiquarian, philologist. He surpasses, it is said, to all these characters a profundity of wisdom in political economy and large comprehension in the science of statistics that would do honor to the first statesmen of any age or country. Language like this has had its usual effects. It has made the subject of it impatient or just rebuke, and M.D. Humboldt is supposed to be angry with us because in our review of the missionary travelers, number XXVI, page 325, we animadverted on his quoting a fact from a journal in which it did not exist and which he now admits to be the case. We know nothing of that unfriendly criticism of which he complains. M.D. Humboldt may rest assured that we depreciate alike all bias and of friendship or hostility towards the person of an author, but he may also rest assured that we shall use all possible freedom with his works, neither lavishly bestowing undeserved praise nor wantonly scattering malicious and unjustifiable censure. We are disposed indeed to think highly of M. de Humboldt's acquirements. We admire his zeal and unwearied industry in collecting information, and his liberty in distributing it. But at the same time, we have a duty to perform which will neither permit our senses to be ravished nor our judgment swayed by the whistling of a name. It would be great injustice and a violation of the truth, his honor continues, cunningly blowing hot and cold at the same time, not to allow M. de Humboldt an extraordinary share of talent. His literary acquirements appear indeed to be more various than generally fall to the lot of man. To intellectual powers of the highest order, he adds an ardent and enthusiastic mind full of energy and activity in the pursuits of knowledge. In the true spirit of enterprise and research, we doubt if he has any superior, and it seems to be equally exerted on all occasions. The ardor of pursuit, the mental energy, and the bodily activity are as much in earnest in rummaging the shelves of a library as in clambering up the sides of a volcanic mountain. He is well read in all the modern discoveries of astronomical, geological, and physiological science, but his book affords no evidence that he is well grounded in chemistry, mineralogy, or in principles and details of the several departments of natural history, as with the exception of botany, in which he had an able assistant, M. Bonpland. M. de Bonpland, however, his honor concludes, after giving a sketch of the traveler's journey as far as it was contained in the volume before him, or rather the volumes for the first volume of the French edition, was expanded into 2 in the translation. M. de Humboldt, however, his honor concludes, has one good quality for a traveler. He is no egotist. He never offends by thrusting forward his own exploits, his own adventures, and his own hairbreadth escapes. All the parade which he displays in adorning science, and whose cause he is always eloquent, Perhaps he may too frequently throw his cloak of wisdom over subjects that ages ago had descended into the vulgar and thoughtlessly expend his power on a familiar objects that are generally understood. In a word, we are persuaded that he aims at too much for any one man to accomplish, or to make use of a nautical phrase. We have been dealing in nautical matters. He spreads too much canvas and carries too little ballast. The curiosity of literature is a fair sample of scores of others which may be selected from the quarterly at that time. Its proprietors paid their contributors liberally, and certain prejudices respected left them free to slash as they pleased. The harder the better. It made the thing sell. It is instructive to turn over its back volumes and see its treatment of many of the now famous names of the century, especially the poetical names. It trampled on the divine genius of Shelley, called dear old Lew Hunt, a Cockney, and was supposed to have killed Johnny Keats. Far from killing Humboldt, its absurd attempt to slash his voyage only amused him. The only extracts that the scribbler quoted proved his own incompetency and malice. To think of Humboldt knowing nothing of mineralogy.